you're listening to the wrong podcast. Topics today include children, construction, and the Kingmaker.
Wrong!
It's the wrong podcast, but we'll make it right. Spin the world in a whole new light. Witty, wild, and a little askew, and the one who's right, it might be you.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm here to talk about politics, culture, religion, sports, and anything else you're not allowed to talk about in polite company. Issue number 1! Emotional blackmail. Hey, this is a story out of Australia. That's right, I'm doing a story about Australia with my excellent Australian accent. You're all very welcome for that. You're so very welcome. Actually, you should be thanking me that I don't do the podcast in that accent. You're welcome. You're welcome, really. So this story is even worse than my Australian accent. It is about a kindergarten. This school was facing economic troubles. They had a load of debt. That's how they describe it in Australia, a load of debt. And they didn't know what to do to get out of the debt. So they said, we've got the perfect way out of this. All these kindergartners, they're making artwork. Instead of sending the artwork home with the children, let's just all collect it. We'll collect it. We'll tell all the parents we're making a portfolio. The children are making a portfolio. And then at the end of the year, we will tell all the parents that they can have their children's artwork for a small donation. Now, if you're a parent, if you've ever had a kindergartner, particularly if it's your first kindergartner, you're not going for this, right? You're telling me I can't have my children's artwork unless I make a donation to your school? Well, get this. The donation was $2,200. You can have your children's artwork as long as you give us $2,200. Now, if you're not on top of the current exchange rate, that is about $1,400 in American dollars. Not $2,200, but still way more than you think you should be paying for your own child's artwork, right? That's not cool at all. Well, let me tell you about Australians. They weren't into it. They didn't think this was a good idea either. And one parent even stole his own child's artwork, and the school asked the police to arrest him for stealing the artwork, for stealing his own child's artwork. Eventually, fortunately, the parents raised enough ruckus that other people got involved, the school district, I don't know, whoever's in charge over there, under there, where the toilets spin backwards. Somebody else got in charge, got involved, and they said, no, the artwork belongs to the children. You cannot keep it. You cannot demand a ransom for children's artwork from parents. And it went so far that the joker, the jackhole who came up with this idea, and everybody else in charge of the school, they were released for mismanagement. Hooray! Good news. Everybody got their artwork, these jokers lost their jobs, and we got good podcast content. Can't ask for more than that. Issue number 2! So you want to dance? Hey, I don't know if you've seen this. I'm sure you have, because you're a human and it's hard to avoid. Donald Trump is ripping down the East Wing of the White House. Just tearing it down. Bulldozers, cranes, wrecking balls, the whole shebang. Just ripping down part of the White House. And people are losing their minds over this. And they're losing their minds so bad that I feel like I have to do the unthinkable. I have to defend Donald Trump over this. I can't believe it myself. As I've said many times before, he might have some good ideas. He might be doing things the right way, but he's the worst person in the world to to represent ideas that you think might be the right thing to do. Because he just goes about it in the wrong way over and over again. Does it in the wrong way. And the way he talks about it, it's just the wrong way to talk about it. And sure enough, that's what's happening here with the destruction of the East Wing of the White House. He's tearing it down because he wants to build a ballroom. And like I said, people are going nuts over this. And it's actually a good idea. Right now, the East Wing is supposed to host these kind of big social events, and it's not big enough. And I don't know if you've ever been to the East Wing of the White House. I have, and it's not impressive at all. It's not that impressive. And it's not big enough for big state functions. And so what the Obama administration, what the Biden administration, what the Trump administration, what they've all had to do in order to host a gala or a dinner large enough for the people who need to be invited to these things, they've been building giant tents on the White House lawn. And they have to bring in porta potties so that people have a place to go to the bathroom. And if you're the most powerful country in the history of the world, it doesn't look good to put up a big circus tent in front of the president's house and make dignitaries use porta potties. So the Obama administration, the Obama people, the Biden people, and the Trump people, they're all saying, hey, we need something for these kind of functions. We need some sort of ballroom that's big enough for this. And Trump said, hey, I'm the guy. I'm into this. This is exactly what I'm interested in. There's construction afoot. I'm totally into real estate. I'm totally into construction. I'm going to do this thing. And I'm going to design it. And he's not getting all of the approvals. He's not going through the process that people are used to these things going through. He's just doing it. And, you know, they're taking down some magnolia trees that apparently have plaques in honor of former presidents and taking down the East Wing, just ripping it down. And of all the things to get upset about, this is not at the top of my list. This seems reasonable to me. Yes, he's going to build this thing and it's going to be too big. And it's not going to match the White House. It's not going to match the architectural standards or styles of the rest of the federal buildings. It's going to be too big. It's going to be garish. He's for sure going to put his name on it, right? It's going to be the Donald J. Trump Ballroom. We know that. But future presidents are not ripping this thing down. They're going to be grateful for it. They're going to use it. It's going to remain standing. And it's not using government funds. He got private corporations to donate to it. So it's not coming out of anybody's pocket except for people who are willingly giving to it. And yes, of course, it's a bribe. That's what's happening. He's telling all these companies, hey, if you want that merger to go through, you might want to donate to my ballroom, which is gross. It's awful. It's no good. But also, fine. I'm sure this kind of thing happens all the time. And the ballroom will be fine. There are things that I'm much more invested in. There's all kinds of things this administration is doing that have caught my interest and caught my concern more than him tearing down part of the White House so we can build a ballroom. For example, the U.S. military is currently murdering people off the coast of Venezuela, 1,200 miles away from the U.S. coast. They're saying, oh, these speedboats are bringing drugs. We're tracking them. We can see them coming. Hey, if you're tracking them, that means you can get the Coast Guard to stop them and arrest them and put them in jail. We don't have authority to just murder people on boats 1,200 miles off of our coast. Nobody's declared war on Venezuela. Nobody's declared war on any sort of terrorist group or drug cartels. This is wrong. They blew up a boat and picked up 2 guys off the boat who survived. And instead of bringing them to the United States and trying them for crimes, they said, okay, well, we're just going to let you go. And they did that because they know they can't try them. So it's just extrajudicial killings. Donald Trump is acting like judge, jury, and executioner all in one. That's wrong. The immigration enforcement right now is way too over-aggressive. They're throwing citizens in jail for 3 days before they're even checking their driver's license. And to top it off, these guys that are getting arrested to work for ICE, they're acting like thugs. They're covering their faces, which is just draconian and puts the fear of everybody of God into everybody, which is part of the point. And these guys aren't well trained. They're pulling their guns on people that don't need to have guns pulled on them. Donald Trump is threatening to send the military into U.S. cities to stamp down on insurrections that aren't happening. And let me tell you, if the governor of Oklahoma had it right, if the National Guard of California was sent into Oklahoma, Oklahomans would be really angry. And you should be angry if you're in Illinois and you've got the Texas National Guard coming into your cities for reasons that aren't clear. Donald Trump is pressuring Ukraine to surrender. Still driving me crazy. He's got all these illegal tariffs. He is not allowed to institute these tariffs. That's Congress's job. And there's no emergency. Canada running an ad featuring the actual words of Ronald Reagan is not an emergency. It's not a reason to impose an additional 10% tariff, an additional 10% tax on everything coming from Canada just because they ran an ad that you don't like. That's not an emergency. He's using the government to target his political enemies, either through the Department of Justice or through the IRS. They're gonna do stuff with the IRS so they can go against left-wing people, which was wrong when the Obama administration did it against right-wing people. It was wrong then. It would be wrong now. The Epstein files still aren't released. There's no sign they're going to be released. Ghislaine Maxwell is probably going to get a pardon. She got moved to some Club Fed, a much looser, secure prison because she said nothing, which was kind of the point. And then the corruption of his family is off the rails. Hunter Biden was selling paintings, quote unquote paintings. He was selling these paintings for $1 million, and people were buying these paintings because they thought it might give them access to the president. That was gross, absolutely gross. And the Trump brothers, they look at that and they say, $1 million? That ain't nothing. We're going to get $1 billion by selling crypto coins, which aren't even paintings. They don't exist. There's nothing there. There is nothing in these crypto coins. Everybody's lining up like, sure, we'll give you $1 billion for these. And then they say, hey, if you give us all this money, the people who buy the most Trump coins, they get a special meeting with the president. That's against the law. That is flat out against the law. And they're doing it in open. They have this, the Trumps have this idea that if you do corruption in the open, nobody questions it because everybody's used to corruption being behind closed doors. So they just do it out in the open and everybody goes, okay, well, I guess it must not be bad because they're being so open and transparent about it. It's still bad. And let's not even talk about how he's signing Bibles and selling them for $1,000. Like I said, there's other things that are on the top of my list ahead of the ballroom. A ballroom makes great sense. And the reason the ballroom is making people lose their minds over all this other stuff is because the metaphor is too obvious. You have the literal President of the United States literally tearing down government structures right in front of us. He's tearing them down without the proper permissions, without the proper protocols, just on his own whim, tearing the government down. The metaphor is too strong. It can't be avoided. It drives people crazy because they see it in everything else he's doing. He was, in fact, elected to do this kind of thing. And what was interesting was his press secretary said, hey, right now the president's sole focus is on the completion of this ballroom. And I believe that to be true. What's wrong with that is that we're in the middle of a government shutdown. And the president has no ability to negotiate, to work with people who disagree with him. He's made that clear. He's not even trying. That's why he uses executive orders instead of actually producing and changing laws. Because he doesn't know how to get laws passed. He's not interested in doing that because he doesn't understand how the government works and he doesn't play well with others. So that's why people are upset. And if you don't like what he's doing with those executive orders, you should be glad that he doesn't know how to get things passed through Congress. Because that means everything he's doing can be undone when he's no longer president. Nothing is permanent because he doesn't know how to make things permanent unless it's a ballroom. Hey, it's time. What are the rules?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? Don't touch my fries or my garden tools. Oh, what are the rules? Yeah, I've got my quirks. Follow them closely and I promise it works.
I have to tell you a story about the lovely Wendy. When she was in college, some friends of hers, these guys, they went out fishing on Halloween. And while they were fishing, they saw this little black cat up in a tree. And so they said, hey, there's a black cat and it's Halloween. That's not safe for the black cat. So they picked up the cat and brought it home and they put it in their apartment of, 4 or 5 college guys with a cat. The lovely Wendy, she was not having it. They were not taking good care of this cat. So she rescued the rescued cat from the college guys. I'm telling you that story just for you to have it in the back of your head. You'll see why, I'm sure. So the rule this week comes from listener Bethany. Bethany, she says there needs to be a rule about lost and found. If you see something on the road, on the street, wherever you happen to find something that's lost that seems valuable, don't pick it up and take it home and post a photo of it onto Facebook, into your little neighborhood face group and say, hey, look, I found somebody's stuffy. Oh, I found somebody's purse. If it's yours, let me know. I have it. Not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody's in your little community group. The chances of the person finding their item because you posted it on Facebook is actually pretty low. If you find somebody's stuff, leave it where it's at. And if you want to take a photo of it and say, hey, I saw somebody's purse on the side of the road. It was at the corner of Smith and Wesson. Take a photo. Post that to community group. Say, hey, there's somebody's purse here. Or if this looks like your purse, message me. I'll tell you where I saw it. Or find the regular lost and found. You leave something on a subway or on a train or at a stadium, or you find it there, take it to the lost and found. Taking it with you is not going to help anybody. Leave it where it was. They're most likely to find it where they left it. And listener Bethany, she told me a story about how somebody left a baseball glove on a train, like a subway train, and somebody found the glove. They yell out just before the doors are about to close, did anybody lose a glove? And then as the doors close, they throw it onto the platform. Hopefully they'll find it. No, you just made it harder for them to find. Maybe they didn't get off on that platform. Maybe they got off a stop earlier. You didn't help them at all. You made things worse. So that's the rule. If you find something, don't make it worse. And as far as black cats on Halloween, what do you think the owner of the little black cat felt when their cat went missing on Halloween? Did they think, oh good, somebody must have saved our cat? Or did they think somebody made it worse? Remember, I want to know what's wrong with you.
What's wrong with you?
If you'd like to submit a question, topic, or tell me how I was wrong, you can email me at listen@therewrongpodcast.com or submit a comment at my website, therewrongpodcast.com. And help me spread the wrong message. If you like what you hear, share it with your friends. And also, just a reminder, if you could leave a comment or a rating, a review on your podcast app, that actually really helps people find it. And I really mean it. If you like this podcast, I need more listeners. I always need more listeners. I want more people to hear what I'm saying. If you enjoyed this, you're helping people out by saying, hey, I think you enjoy the wrong podcast. Now it's time for my favorite part of the show. I was wrong.
I was wrong. Oh, I was wrong.
Listener Gerald, responding to my episode Frog Out of the Box about gerrymandering, he says,
your proposal of an expanded House would offer an improvement and has the advantage of not requiring a constitutional amendment. What I'd like to see in my dream world, that world where everyone is rational and acts in good faith, is a constitutional convention that will allow us to start over from scratch in the way we provide for a balance of powers and provide for fair representation for large states in both houses of Congress. If we even decide that a bicameral Congress is the way to go.
And I appreciate that Gerald recognizes that what he's proposing is a dream world. I don't see a constitutional convention happening unless there is some sort of civil war. And which is why some people strangely are advocating for a civil war. And here's the deal. People say, oh yeah, we need a civil war, we need to redo this because, and then they tell you their best case scenario. What's going to happen in the best case scenario? And if you think that what's in your head as the best case scenario is the most likely thing to happen, you need to reevaluate whether or not you think it's actually going to happen. The best case scenario and the most likely scenario are very rarely the same thing. Listener John, I need to back up a little bit. Boop, 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 boop. I can't believe I don't do that more often. John and I had a prior conversation about gerrymandering, and the main thing that we agreed on is that we disagree on whether or not the United States is in a crisis situation. If there's actually a crisis because of Donald Trump, if it's not just the norms have been eroded, but the law has ceased to function the way it should. And John is under the impression that this is a crisis. And that's why California needs to gerrymander. So this is what John had to say about my episode.
You exhibit a strong tendency to cherry pick your information. That's problematic. Provide the relevant details, please. I'm not saying you were lying, but you aren't being completely honest either. Additionally, the whole universal principles thing you cling to is worrisome.
As I recall, the universal principle I was advocating for in that episode was do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Issue number 3, Antichrist. Hey, there's something coming in the summer of 2026. You need to be aware. In Las Vegas, there's going to be this thing called the Steroid Olympics. The idea for these Olympic Games is that you are free, all participants are free to use any and all medical enhancements they want to help them perform at their peak. So if you want to use human growth hormone or horse steroids or elephant testosterone, you go for it. Show us what you can do. It's your body. You just go for it. Show us how strong, how fast you can be with anything that can improve your performance. And one of the promoters, one of the sponsors of the Steroid Olympics is this guy, Peter Thiel, and he, in part, believes in transhumanism. And transhumanism is the idea that we can overcome our own humanities. If we explore technology and other advancements, we can strip ourselves of our weaknesses and become greater beings that are not even human anymore. And the steroid Olympics, as you can imagine, leads into this kind of thing. Hey, how can humans be greater than humanity actually offers them in terms of performance and speed and strength? And let's show this stuff off to people. Peter Thiel is a venture capitalist. He originally made his money through PayPal. He was one of the original founders of what became PayPal, along with this guy named Elon Musk. I'm sure you've heard of him. They are two of the richest and most influential people on the planet, just entirely based on their wealth alone. It makes them extremely, extremely influential. Peter Thiel has funded a number of different technologies that have become famous and useful and things you use today. So his wealth has grown even greater than what he produced when he sold PayPal. And one of the things about Peter Thiel is he started talking about his politics, what he believes about the world. You need to know that he is a Catholic. I think you would probably best to describe him as a lapsed Catholic. He is gay, so that obviously interferes with his Catholicism to some extent. One of the things he talks about is that he's really worried about human freedom. And he doesn't believe that democracy is strong enough to protect human freedom. And what we really need is authoritarianism to protect human freedom. And if you're struggling with that, I'm with you. It seems to me that authoritarianism has consistently proven to be the thing that most gets in the way of human freedom. But he is certain, he feels certain that democracy is the issue, not authoritarianism. And he helped J.D. Vance. He introduced him into finance, into technological finance. He has promoted J.D. Vance as a politician. He is a major reason why J.D. Vance was chosen as Donald Trump's running mate, and J.D. Vance is now the vice president. J.D. Vance says many of the same things Peter Thiel says. He quotes many of the same people Peter Thiel does. That is a red flag for me about J.D. Vance. One of Peter Thiel's most interesting, controversial projects right now is a company called Palantir. Now, if you are a Lord of the Rings freak like I am, you don't need anybody to just tell you what a Palantir is. But because I'm sure most of you are normal, well-adjusted people, I will tell you what a Palantir is. In the Lord of the Rings, there are these giant crystal balls, and they are Palantirs, and they allow the people who use them to see things happening in other Palantirs or near or around other Palantirs. It gives you knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise have. And it might give you knowledge of the future or knowledge of things that are happening in other places. And what you need to know about the Palantirs is just like the Ring of Power, the Palantirs are used to corrupt everybody who chooses to use them. Everybody who uses a Palantir ends up corrupt. And Peter Thiel is really into the Lord of the Rings, and he has named a number of his companies after things in the Lord of the Rings. And it's interesting that he chooses to name this particular company Palantir, because what Palantir does is they collect data on behalf of governments and other large institutions, other large organizations. Maybe they're so large they have all sorts of systems. They don't have one sort of architecture to contain all their data. They say, that's no problem. We're Palantir. We're here to help you. Our tools will analyze all your data into one place, regardless of where they are, and we will give you the information you need, no matter how your data is stored, and we will help you with decision making. So this kind of explains why he named the company Palantir, right? It helps people know, have knowledge that they would otherwise be blinded to because of the size of the organization. So, for example, one of the things Palantir will do is, if it's used by the military, they will say, hey, there's this threat arising in this location. Here are all of the options that you have in your arsenal to attack them. Here's how much it would cost to use each one of these weapons. Here's our recommendation for the most cost-effective and effective tool to use to eliminate this threat. Immigration enforcement is using Palantir right now to help them find illegal immigrants in the United States. So the immigrant has applied for government services in this place and that place with this state agency, with this school board. Palantir can go through all the data and find out where that illegal immigrant is most likely to be living based on all of the information the government has. And then Customs and Immigration Enforcement are able to find that person. And Peter Thiel is obsessed with the Antichrist. And he started to give these lectures. He gave a series of 4 lectures, and they cost $200 each. And so it would cost you $800 to hear what Peter Thiel thinks about the Antichrist. And the New York Times has one of the best conservative voices out there. This guy, his name is Ross Douthat, and he's a writer for the New York Times, and he does a podcast called Interesting Times. He's done a number of different podcasts, and I've enjoyed all of them. They're all kind of different formats. Sometimes he's on with a liberal. In this one, he's the host alone, and he's saying, hey, these are unprecedented times. These are interesting times. I'm going to talk to all of the people who are involved in making the world the way it is, even if they are shunned and hated by the New York Times and its audience as a whole. So he did an interview with Steve Bannon, and he did an interview with Charlie Kirk that has not yet been released, but Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, obviously interesting people with interesting perspectives, and not normally heard from directly by readers of the New York Times. Well, Peter Thiel is up there. And Ross Douthat, one of his best interviews, really, is with Peter Thiel. And in that interview, they talk about the problems of the world and Thiel's ideas about the world and how to make the world better, what's making the world go wrong. And in Thiel's mind, economic stagnation is the greatest evil in the world. He says we're not innovating the way we used to. We're not creating new things. We're not making new things. We're not bringing in new technologies. And as a venture capitalist, you can make some sense of this, right? He makes his money by investing in people who come up with new ideas. And he's going to make more money the more new ideas come about. The more things that are effective and actually transform the world, the more money he makes. And he kind of turns that and says, no, I'm not doing it so I can make more money. I'm doing this because stagnation is the enemy. It's the true evil. And through stagnation, the Antichrist is going to arise. And the Antichrist is going to put stagnation on everybody and say, no, we just need to keep everything the way it is. The world is great. We don't want to change anything. We want peace and security. We need to tamper down any changes in the world. We just need to tweak how the world is right now. It's perfect as is. We're just going to tweak it and make it just for everybody. And we're going to give peace and security through everybody. And the Antichrist will not be this figure that dominates the world through speeches the way we've imagined as Hitler did. He'll be somebody who gives everybody what they're clamoring for. And you will be shocked to hear who he thinks his top candidate for Antichrist is. Here's Peter Thiel.
Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but sort of one question is, and this was a plot hole in all these Antichrist books people wrote. How does the Antichrist take over the world? He gives these demonic, hypnotic speeches, and people just fall for it. And so it's this plot hole. It's this daemonium.
Right. It's implausible.
It's a very implausible plot hole.
Right.
But I think we have an answer to this plot hole. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop. And this is what you need to regulate. It's the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century where, the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. People are way too scared for that. In our world, the thing that has political resonance is the opposite. It is the thing that has political resonance is we need to stop science. We need to just say stop to this. And this is where, I don't know, in the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
Now, I am not a big fan of Greta Thunberg. I think her ideas, and she's kind of become a parody of herself in some respects. And there's this idea in progressivism that there's just one cause. Everything is under one cause, and if we can fix global warming or we can bring justice to Palestine, then the one cause will be satisfied, and they're all just dominoes waiting to be knocked down. If we can change income inequality in Puerto Rico, then the dominoes will start to fall, and global warming will stop because we stopped income inequality in Puerto Rico. That's very loose and an unfair, probably, representation of the idea of one cause progressivism. But Greta Thunberg is absolutely fallen into line with those ideas. And I don't think she's really in the running for Antichrist. I think she has her fans, but she is not going to be elected worldwide to be our leader anytime soon. The part of the interview, there were two parts that I found really, really interesting. And I will give you a link to this entire interview if you want to hear it for yourself. You want to hear more about Peter Thiel in his own words. But with something like AI and a company like Palantir, and the idea is that we need less democracy and we need more authoritarianism, it sure seems like Peter Thiel might be in the running for Antichrist. And maybe he's so interested in the Antichrist because of his own emotional projection. Like, how some people will accuse people of being liars or cheaters because they're the liar or cheater. Maybe Peter Thiel's into the Antichrist because he's kind of the Antichrist. And Ross Douthat finds a way to basically ask him, are you the Antichrist or are you Jar Jar Binks?
Okay, I want to suggest a middle ground between those two options. It used to be that the reasonable fear of the Antichrist was a kind of wizard of technology. And now the reasonable fear is someone who promises to control technology, make it safe, and sort of usher in what, from your point of view, would be a kind of universal stagnation, right?
Well, it's more, that's more my description of how it would happen.
Right.
So I think people still have a fear of a 17th century Antichrist.
Yes.
We're still scared of Dr. Strangelove.
Right, but you're saying the real Antichrist would play on that fear and say, you must come with me to avoid Skynet, to avoid the Terminator, to avoid nuclear Armageddon.
Yes.
And I guess my view would be, looking at the world right now, that you would need a certain kind of novel technological progress to make that fear concrete, right? So I can buy that the world could turn to someone who promised peace and regulation if the world became convinced that AI was about to destroy everybody, right? But I think to get to that point, you need one of the accelerationist apocalyptic scenarios to start to play out, right? To get your peace and safety Antichrist, you need more technological progress. Like, one of the key failures of totalitarianism in the 20th century was it had a problem of knowledge. It couldn't know what was going on all over in the world, right? So you need the AI or whatever else to be capable of helping the peace and safety totalitarian rule. So don't you think you need your worst case scenario to involve some burst of progress that is then tamed and used to impose stagnant totalitarianism? You can't just get there from where we are right now.
Well, it can
Like Greta Thunberg's on a boat in the Mediterranean, like, like protesting Israel. Like I just don't see the promise of safety from AI, safety from tech, even safety from climate change right now as a powerful, universal rallying cry, absent accelerating change and real fear of total catastrophe.
I mean, these things are so hard to score, but I think environmentalism's pretty powerful. I don't know if it's absolutely powerful enough to create a one world totalitarian state, but man, it is.
I think it is not.
It is
in its current form.
It is. I want to say it's the only thing people still believe in Europe.
Now, as I mentioned before, Peter Thiel is into transhumanism, and this exchange about transhumanism was the most fascinating part of the interview.
Right, and you were mentioned earlier the idea that the modern world used to promise radical life extension and doesn't anymore. It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
in this.
Should the
human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this. The ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or a transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross-dresses. And a transsexual is someone where you change your, penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way, the critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul and you need to transform your whole self. And so,
right. But the other, wait. I generally agree with what I think is your belief that religion should be a friend to science and ideas of scientific progress. I think any idea of divine providence has to encompass the fact that we have progressed and achieved and done things that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But it still also seems like, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace. And the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Well, it's...
Douthat obviously calls him out immediately. Why did it take you so long to answer that question? Why do you have to stutter over that question? Does humanity need to be saved? Is humanity worth being saved? Kind of concerning for a guy who might be the Antichrist. But I could be wrong. If you think I am, let me know. Let me know why. I had fun and I hope you did too. Bye-bye.
It might be podcast.